Hello everybody, Infinite Shinjo here, and welcome to Let's Talk Anime, episode 54. It has been a while since I've recorded Let's Talk Anime, although it probably isn't that big of a gap for you because I've been recording a lot of episodes bulked, so I've just been spacing them out. So it's been a while for me at least, and I've had trouble finding time to watch and read this stuff that I cover in this video and every other video, but I don't even know where to even begin. So let's just start in with this manga, which is called Gacha wo Mawashite Nakama wo Fuyasu. I probably butchered that, and apologies to anybody that actually speaks Japanese or understands Japanese, but I think I have a pretty rough understanding of how to pronounce that. Although from what I'm seeing, it might translate to you increase families and make beautiful girl army corps and put it up. I think when I was reading it, I saw that like underneath one of the tags, so I'm assuming that's the translation, but I'm not sure. Although this is a perfect opportunity to say that for any future episodes, I think I mentioned this before, but if you want me to cover any manga whatsoever, please leave a link. I have been trying to find Mikuban to discuss for Let's Talk Anime, but there was no link given, and I'm having a heck of a time looking for it. So for the time being, and definitely moving forward, if I'm not given a link for a manga, I'm not covering it. I don't make the rules, even though I kind of do, but it's just a lot easier when I don't have to spend extra time looking for it, because that takes time away from me recording videos in the first place. And I don't feel like it's that too crazy of an ask to have, because if you want me to cover a manga, it makes sense to leave a link. Now with anime, I can roughly find different places to find it. There's Hulu, Crunchyroll, Funimation, all these sort of places. But for a manga, it's a lot harder. At least from my experience. I don't have much experience looking for manga, but whatever. That's my rant on that. So, it has been a while since I've read this, but I wanted to find the mangaka for this. The person that made this, I don't remember who it is. I can see a little name in the bottom right corner, but I don't know if that's the name or not. But regardless, the long shots of when Okura first arrives in the Gacha world just looks absolutely stunning, even in black and white. And like I said before, it has been a while since I've read this, but I guess it is something that I wanted to write down. The tutorial that they set up is very unique, although at the moment I don't remember what it is, but I do vaguely remember it. But I only read the first chapter, so I don't entirely remember everything. One thing I do remember is that the main dude that gets transported to this isekai world, gacha world if you will, Okura, I remember there was this big thing that they wanted to mention about how he is basically a gacha fiend. He literally just repulls, or I can't think of the actual term, but like re-rolls. Re-rolls is a good word for like these high-ranking waifus in this case, and really hits close to home when you realize that it's not too different from our world. And that's kind of wild when you think about it. It's with a lot of anime and manga, they kind of stretch the fabric of what makes sense realistically, but this is super real, and for a lot of people it definitely is something they do on an average day. So kind of crazy. Now the cons that I'll give it, which is only one, is in essence it is an isekai, so it's not really something that's too special, because I know there are people that are probably sick of the isekai at this point. It was fine back in the day when there was a very few, at least from what I can remember. I wasn't really around watching stuff at that point. But I'm sure back in the day, isekai was something unique, because it wasn't really something that was a lot of, in the best way to put it. But now you can't go one season of anime without any sort of isekai. There are literally 2 isekai that came out this year that are about a person that deals with medicine in an isekai world. 2 different anime, and it's not the same. That's just wild. So at the same time, if you want to make an isekai at this point, you have to do something that kind of makes it unique. And the gacha role of this is kind of different. I only read the first chapter, so I'm not sure if it's going to go different or more the same as other isekai later on down the line. But from what I read, I really like it. From what I read so far, it really gives me Konosuba vibes, where it's kind of more comedy, which is something that's definitely needed when you got the SAOs and the overlords that are super dark, super edgy. That it's fun to have nice, calm comedies. Although I say calm loosely because Konosuba is definitely not calm. But yeah, that's really all that I can talk about with this gacha manga. Again, if you have any manga to discuss, please leave a link. If you leave an idea for a manga, but don't leave a link, I'm gonna be honest, I'm just gonna ignore it. Because I don't have time to deal with all of this. But yeah, moving on to the next one, and completely forgetting about that, is the great Jahy-Sama. So, I actually forgot about this until I went to record this. This initially wasn't in this episode. It was Happy Sugar Life. But that discussion that I had for that was basically, hey, I didn't watch it, I watched it, I didn't like it, and here are the reasons why. If you really want to know, then watch it for yourself, but it is very dark, very gritty. I didn't like it, it just is very uncomfortable. So Jahy was here to discuss as well, so I figured to just tack it on here. And it's much easier doing something like this when I've watched Jahy a long time ago. Which is weird because it was like, what would that be, the summer season, I think? And it was still trickling over into the fall season, so I'm not sure why. Maybe delay issues, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, Jahy is basically a female version of Devil is a Part-Timer. I don't want to like stereotype it like that, but that's basically what it is. You have Jahy, who is a ruler of a demon world, who gets transported to this real world, has a very rinky-dink apartment, and has all these different people that she interacts with. The only difference, she's living by herself. So far. Although at the same time, there are probably very unique distinctions that you can make between the two to make them different. Like how Jahy looks like a kid for the most part, but can grow into an adult, where Mao can't do that in Devil is a Part-Timer. Although it's funny, at the same time, I wrote this as a pro, but it could really be taken as a con as well. The only characters, from what I've seen, that I really like are the landlord and the bar owner, the 2 sisters. Because everybody else that I've seen so far is just like, okay. Now, I mean, to be fair, I will give Jahy credit. Because Jahy is, in essence, a brat. But it makes sense with Jahy's character because Jahy ruled the demon world and is used to having all of this attention and all of this pampering, that it makes sense that when Jahy has to work for herself, it's harder to manage because Jahy's not used to stuff like that. Although one character, I don't think, unless they really overhaul her character, is the blue-green hair girl on the left side. I can't even remember her name. If I'm not mistaken, she was second in command to Jahy or something like that. And it's just like, I love Jahy-Sama with all my life. I am going to do all this stuff. And it's just like, for example, I don't know if this is an actual interaction that they had, but I can imagine it'd be something like, she finds out Jahy's living in this dump of a place. She looks at the place, doesn't think for a second, oh, Jahy must be poor. Instead, ah, I see. You are such an evil mastermind. You are living in this place incognito. It's just like, she's she's in love with Jahy to an awkward level. I don't know if they're going to change that character or just going to have her be one note like that. I don't know. But just from what I've seen from a character like this, I don't really like it. Now, it makes sense because she's kind of over the top like Darkness is in Konosuba. But it makes sense with Konosuba because everybody else is just wild. When you got people that are realistic like the landlord and to an extent the bar owner, when you got realistic characters like that, it just makes characters like that feel kind of out of place, which being from a demon world, it kind of makes sense. It's funny that the only other pro I wrote down after this is Jahy being a spoiled brat, but I already covered that. Although I will give the show credit because there was like, I can't remember what the actual term for it is, but like Jahy has to collect all of these things or whatever to maintain the adult form. And I think I watched up to episode 3, I can't really remember. I remember them talking about it in the first episode, but then in the second episode they just kind of dropped that plot line of, oh, Jahy has to look for this stuff. But then they bring it up back again in episode 3. I might be fudging the numbers, but that's how I remember it. Because I remember Jahy went to that forest, but wasn't actually a forest because it was just trees in the middle of a neighborhood or something. It was very strange. But yeah, it just seems like at some point they remember that Jahy has to collect these things to regain her power. But at other times they just want to do random one-off things. Although at the same time, I can see that I haven't even met every character. I don't even know the character in the background with the cape. And at the same time, from what I've seen from the show so far, it seems to be only jokes and character interactions. And that's what makes it different from Devil as a part-timer. Because there are even times the part-timer is very serious. But in contrast, Jahy is just all jokes and all based off of characters interacting with each other. Like, I don't even know if they're gonna have Jahy's best friend, aka Stalker, interact with the landlord or the bar owner. I don't know if they're just gonna have every character interact with each other to see what kind of crazy dynamics they could have. But yeah, overall, I would say it was an okay show. Again, much like most everything that I cover in this series, I'm most likely not going to finish it, just because if I would realistically finish it, at the moment it would probably be like a 5 or 6 out of 10. It's not anything spectacular, but it doesn't really have much to stand out, and among the sea of seasonal anime, I'm easily going to forget it by next year. But moving on to the last one for today is an anime that I watched a long time ago, Pet Girl Sakurasou. I mean, I say a long time ago. Realistically, it was probably 3 months ago from recording this. Might be 4 months when this episode comes out. For something like this that might be a little bit more underground than a lot of seasonal stuff, I feel like it makes sense to give a description of what the show is about. Although in doing that, I have my phone right here in front of me because I couldn't remember half of the characters' names. But you got Sora Nakanda, the main dude right in the middle, who is part of this group of weirdos. Essentially put, there's this group in their dorm, or how is it? There's the Sakura dorm, which is where everybody's from. Pet Girl Sakurasou, Sakura Academy. They all go to school together, but the Sakura dorm is the weird dorm, for one reason or another. You got all these weird characters that stay there for one reason or another. Kanda stays there because they don't allow pets in the actual dorm. He wants to take care of a cat, and they give him the ultimatum. Stay in the dorm, or take care of the cat, or go to the Sakura dorm. And you can kind of see what happens after that. Then you got Mashira Shina, who is basically the second character in the show, the deuteragonist, I guess is the best way to put it, who is kind of monotone. The best way I can explain it is, if you know Phineas and Ferb, it's basically firm. Doesn't talk a lot, and just spouts random wisdom sometimes. Never thought I'd be making a Phineas and Ferb reference in an episode of Let's Talk Anime, but here we are. Then you got Nanami Aoyama, the brown hair girl, dark brown hair girl, who I don't even remember why she decided to join the dorm. She has a crush on Kanda, which is probably very obvious, and I think that's mainly the reason that she stays there, more or less. There might be a major reason, but that's the only reason I can come up with. Then Misaki Kamiugusa, she's called an alien so many times in the show, and that's just hilarious. And she can make movies and stuff. And then her love interest behind her, Jin Mitaka, I don't really know why he's in the dorm. I know they mentioned that how he's a player before, which might be the reason why. And then, yeah, there it is. The long-haired boy over on the side. Yes, that's actually a boy. Rinosuke Akasaka. Akasaka. Yeah, I had that right. Basically, he was stuck in his dorm for half the show, and then comes in out of nowhere and becomes the main character. They call him Dragon, which is an awesome name. And I'm trying to see, okay, it is tomatoes. For some reason, he eats tomatoes raw and claims that tomatoes are the only thing he can trust, which is very weird. And then the blonde haired girl is Rita, his love interest. Yeah. And, oh yeah, the other girl. That is Chihiro, I think it is. I know they mentioned it like at the very, very start. Yeah, Chihiro is, how is it? She's related to Sheena in some way, but I can't remember exactly how. I think, like, aunt? Maybe? I don't know. Basically, it's this group of weirdos that are just going through everyday life. And from what you probably could have gathered, it mostly is romantic interactions. Because you got the whole Jin Misaki dynamic. Then you got the love triangle right at the start. The two on the side. It just kind of makes sense. So now that we've all understood where the show is coming from and what it's about, what do I like about it? So, obviously, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but Sheena can make art. Nanami can voice act. Misaki can make videos. Jin can do something to help with videos. I can't remember exactly what. And Rinosuke can hack computers. Although that last one is kind of out of the ordinary. And, oh, what does Kanda do? Shoot. He makes video games. That's what it is. So, for anybody that has a passion for any of the arts, anything like that, this show is right up your alley. It really goes out of its way to show, here are some times where the characters actually win, but here are some times that they actually lose hard, and it really gets to them. But really, I think the biggest draw is the characters, which is funny because I'll get to that part when I start with the cons. But also, Reina is Sheena's childhood friend, but Reina really hates Sheena's guts because Sheena was so good at art that everybody else felt bad about themselves. Yeah, that happened. And that is really kind of hitting really hard. But Reina foreshadows that halfway through the show, and that sort of thing kind of happens to Kanda at the same time. Because he's realizing that Sheena is so good at all this stuff that he shouldn't even try. Realistically, I might be flubbing up a little bit of the dialogue, but that's how I interpret it. But the show ends with Misaki and Jin graduating, and the dorm is being torn down. Of course, the dorm is being torn down. It's an anime, but between Misaki's speech and everybody doing their part, they managed to keep the dorm alive. And my gosh, Misaki's speech. I literally watched the episode where Misaki had her speech before I went to work. I was tearing up. I didn't think I would care this much for a bunch of weirdos, but I really did. It just, basically what it boils down to is Misaki reminiscing on all these good times that they had, and it's something that I didn't really think that I would care so much about, but I did. But on to the cons, and the first thing that I want to get out of the way, I didn't watch this show at first. Clearly, it's an 04 anime. But what I mean is, I watched the first episode maybe 2 years ago, because I heard a lot of people talking about it. But I watched the first episode and I did not like it. The main reason that I didn't like it was all the panty shots at the very, very start. Like, the show literally starts with a Misaki panty shot. And Misaki just spouting all this nonsense about how I'm your wife and all this stuff. Obviously, she's kind of playing because Kanda isn't the one she's interested in. But she is kind of over the top with that a lot of the time. Very early on, there were so many panty shots that I can think of, and it kind of turned me off of the show. Especially the concept of everybody being kind of odd and out of the ordinary didn't really appeal to me initially, but after rewatching it and giving it a second chance, obviously I changed my mind. And the other big thing that I can say is the couples are super obvious. Clearly, there's going to be one true ship, in a best way to put it, at the end of the show. Like, Misaki is obviously going to end up with Jin. Also, I love how at the end of the show, they get their own place, but it's right next to the dorm. That's just gold right there. But I mean, as far as the love triangle between Sheena, Aoyama, and Kanda, it's just super obvious. Because from the very start of the show, it was clear to me that Sheena was going to be the one that would win. Air quotes on win. It was just kind of obvious. And honestly, it just feels like the easy way out. Especially since I feel so much more attachment for Aoyama. Because when it comes to me watching stuff, I feel more attachment to characters that go through trials and go through hard times. But with Sheena, she never did. And I much prefer Aoyama as a character to Sheena. But that's just my personal take. Obviously, it probably wouldn't have worked out anyway, because Aoyama literally went out of her way to confess to Kanda. But obviously, when it comes to stuff like that, I'm pretty sure they're childhood friends, which is another tack against them. You know, the whole trope of childhood friends in anime never winning very much. Yeah, that's not to say I dislike Sheena as a character. It's just that it felt super obvious that that's how it was going to end up. That's really all I can talk about with Pet Girl Sakurasou. Obviously, the obligatory I want a second season of this show, I have to mention that. But I don't think it's going to happen. It's been so long since the first season. But, you know, a guy can dream. But that is going to be it for this episode of Let's Talk Anime. It ran on a little bit longer than I expected, so hopefully I can trim it down to at least a watchable amount. But if you have any recommendations for Let's Talk Anime, leave them down in the comment section. I think I have enough material to record one more episode, at least at the moment. And again, if you have any manga, leave a link. I'll see you next time. Momentai.